welcome. We will have our facilitators introduce themselves. We will have a brief overview of St. David's strategic plan. We'll talk about the funding opportunity itself, and then the process of submitting your application, some tips and tricks, and then we'll get into the Q&A portion.
Hello, everyone. My name is Abena Sante, one of the senior program officers here at St. David's Foundation, and it's a joy to be with you this morning.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christina Thompson. I lead communications efforts here at St. David's Foundation. So excited to dig into this today. And I'll hand it over to Reagan Gruber-Moffett.
Hi there. Good morning. I'm Reagan Gruber-Moffett. You're meeting all the characters as we get started. I'm the Vice President of Community Investments here. And just want to thank you for showing up for this opportunity and showing up in the work that you do every day in our community. So really excited watching all the names pop up in the chat right now and seeing lots of existing partners. So good to see you again, and lots of new folks who maybe have not worked with the St. David's Foundation before. So welcome. We're glad to have you. For those who know less about the St. David's Foundation, just as some background, we are a community-focused, equity-driven organization that is working to improve health outcomes in Central Texas. And we do that in a number of ways. We have the opportunity through a partnership with St. David's Healthcare to reinvest the proceeds into the community. And we do that in a couple of ways. We do that through our grant making annually. This year, we will give out over $100 million to our community through grant making. We also lead the largest mobile dental program in the country, and also the largest health scholarship program in the state of Texas. So we've got a lot going on as we work on this. That's why we needed a strategic plan to make sure we're focused and have direction on where we're going. And so based on data from our community, the Community Health Needs Assessment, we landed on the foundation focusing on 3 areas, all of which you can see on the screen right now, all of which guiding us toward health equity and toward our mission of advancing health equity through investment and action. So those 3 areas are access to care, so access to health care that's quality and meets people where they are, economic stability, so increasing economic stability through removing barriers, and then also equipping communities to achieve their health priorities. So the funding opportunity that we're here to talk about today is squarely within that third. So goal 3, otherwise known as community-driven change. So Claire, if you'll take us to the next slide. So how do we go about equipping communities? There's a couple of ways, but one way is by investing in networks and social infrastructure in historically marginalized communities to foster health and wellness. That's a mouthful, but really that is about ensuring that communities have what they need to be able to lead their own solutions. So in other words, civic health. We believe that when communities are connected, they hold the solutions. And so today we'll be talking about media as one of those tools and how having trustworthy local media to really support communities. So I will pass it back to my colleagues to talk more about our Strengthening Local Media open call that we have launched and that we hope that many of you have submitted an LOI for or will after this call today.
Thanks, Reagan. Before we jump in, I just want to take a moment. When we developed this funding opportunity, we've had many conversations exchanged many emails and asked for a lot of time from many of you, many of our peer funders, other organizations and leaders doing really tremendous work in the space. And I just want to take a minute to thank you for your time, your expertise, and definitely the excitement that you've brought to this as we begin to launch this. Okay, so let's get into it. So I'm going to dig in and take a deeper dive into the funding opportunity. As Claire mentioned, we'll have time for Q&A after we review some of the main criteria of the opportunity. Central Texans are stronger when they are connected to each other, to vital resources, and to the opportunities that shape and improve their communities. A strong local news ecosystem can play a vital role by informing residents, amplifying community voices, and shining light on the issues that shape health and well-being. We believe that journalism, particularly at the local level, is a community anchor that keeps residents connected to news and civic life. Without local news, people are less likely to vote, be aware of regional issues and public health and safety concerns. So through this funding opportunity, we'll support local media organizations and community-centered journalism that strengthens local coverage of health and social issues impacting Central Texans, particularly those faced by the greatest health disparities. So this includes strengthening the capacity of local news organizations serving diverse and underrepresented communities, fostering collaboration among local news organizations and journalists, and lifting up the voices of those in our community most affected by health inequities. Next slide, Claire. So I want to talk a little bit about the opportunity itself, the award amount, the type of award. Awards will be based on the scale of the proposed project, on the organization's potential for long-term impact, and the organization's current annual budget. Applicants will be asked to submit a proposed project amount and budget to help us understand your project. We ask that the grant amount requested align with the actual scope of the proposed work. We anticipate funding up to $5 million across all grant awards, and the grants are one-time and flexible over a 24-month period. And over the 2-year period, we will ask for annual grant reports, and grantees will be invited into various learning opportunities and evaluation conversations. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the eligibility criteria. So obviously our region is based here in Central Texas. That means Bastrop, Caldwell, Hayes, Travis, and Williamson counties. We're looking to support organizations that are offering local coverage of health and social issues impacting Central Texans, particularly those facing the greatest health disparities. Now, we know a lot of organizations on this call do a lot of great work that is national, that is regional. So this is specific to coverage that is affecting those in our counties, Bastrop, Caldwell, Hayes, Travis, and Williamson, that are providing original local news to communities in those counties, that produce or support journalism with a strong history of serving local news outlets and reflecting communities on which they report, and then demonstrate a commitment to journalistic integrity. This last bullet, within the funding opportunity, there's a link to several resources, and we ask that you visit those. They're really helpful guides, and that is an integral part of our eligibility criteria. So I wanted to jump into a couple of questions. Specifically here, you'll see that we've got a lot of our for-profit media partners. And again, going back to that first thank you, we had many conversations with you to help us inform this opportunity. So yes, for-profit organizations can apply. However, proposals from for-profit organizations must clearly articulate how their proposed project aligns with our foundation's mission of advancing health equity and improving the health and well-being of underserved communities in Central Texas. Funding awarded for for-profit organizations must be used for charitable purposes and cannot be used for general operating support. We're looking for charitable impact, not profit generation. Your proposal needs to demonstrate clear community benefit and how funding will strengthen local news as a public good connected to our civic health funding priority. I want to also spend a couple of minutes talking about what we mean by what is original local news. And specifically, does republishing or aggregating content from other sources count? By original local news, we mean journalism that your organization produces reporting, investigating, and creating content about health issues affecting Central Texas communities. Republishing or aggregating content from other sources does not qualify as original news production. It does not meet the eligibility requirements for this funding opportunity. So if your team reports, investigates, and creates information about local issues affecting Central Texas communities, this includes interviews with community members, original reporting on local government decisions, investigations on local health issues, coverage of events, developments in your service area. What this doesn't mean is sharing articles from other news sources, curating content for wired services, or aggregating information without original reporting or context. I'm going to jump into some key dates. As you know, we launched last week. We're off and running. We've received several LOIs already. We've had a tremendous amount of team conversations already reviewing those and discussing, and that did inform how we approach today's webinar. We've already gotten some great questions from you all, so thank you. Keep them coming. We launched on the 7th. We've received a handful, and I really encourage you all to submit your LOIs as early as possible to give you all a runway to complete that before we head into the deadline. The deadline to receive letters of intent is by 5 p.m. Central Time on January 26th. For those invited to complete a full application, those will be due on February 9th. All applications must be submitted through our Giving Data portal. Emails will not be accepted. Funding decisions will happen in early March, and then we anticipate the grant period to begin in April of 2026, later this year. And I will now pass this over to my colleague, Abena.
Thank you, Christina. Hello, everyone. You heard from Reagan, who shared some highlights of our strategic plan, including the goal area where this call originates from. And I'm going to focus on the letter of intent and the rubric, and then we'll go into questions and answers. And so, why an LOI, and what is an LOI? The foundation is using an open call process versus an invitation to create a more equitable process open to all eligible applicants. As you heard from Christina, the first step in this application process is submitting an LOI. The LOI allows applicants to express high-level ideas without investing a lot of time. We know your time is valuable, and so we want to make sure that the LOI is brief enough for you to share those high-level ideas before, if you're invited, you submit a full proposal. LOIs, Christina mentioned it, but I'm going to say it again. We are reviewing it on a rolling basis, so as we receive them. So from LOI submission to decision on advancing for a full proposal is 4 quick business days. The LOI again is open to all eligible applicants, so do check the eligibility criteria closely. And the LOIs that strongly align with a call will be advanced to the full proposal invitation. So you can submit anytime before the January 22nd deadline. And Christina mentioned we have a handful because the earlier you submit, the earlier you would hear back from us with information if you're advancing so that you'd have more time to write your full proposal. And there's a question around, can I submit multiple LOIs? And the answer is yes, you can, as long as the LOIs are different in scope and scale, and they are distinct from each other. So we are not putting a limit on the number of LOIs that you can submit. Another wondering that you may have is, can multiple programs or outlets under a single organization submit separate LOIs? And the answer again is yes, as long as they are distinct. For example, if you operate multiple publications or programs with different missions audiences, or geography, each can submit a distinct LOI. Also, with the LOI and the application process, we also are open to collaboration. So you can submit a collaborative LOI, and the lead organization that submits the LOI is going to be the lead applicant. Next slide, please. Okay. So this is the letter of intent. You all, it's just one question that we have for the letter of intent, and I'm going to read it verbatim. Tell us about your work and how you produce local news and information that strengthens reporting on the health and social issues of historically marginalized Central Texans and others not adequately served, reached, or represented. That's all we want to know. Tell us about your work. In addition, we are asking that you submit editorial samples. So your writing sample or any multimedia sample such as audio, clip, video, or podcast. We are stressing original content. So something that you have done, not what someone has done for you. So the LOI, again, is a wide screen. Advancing beyond the LOI doesn't guarantee funding. It just means you meet eligibility criteria, you are in the zone of possibilities. We also suggest that you think carefully if this funding opportunity, the local media funding opportunity, speaks to your organization's mission, your organization's strengths, and your community's needs. And I encourage you to be sensitive to your time because a full application does take a lot of time to complete. Remember that this proposal that you are writing or going to write, it doesn't have to be new work. We expect that most proposals will seek support to nurture, to grow, or even refine existing work. Remember that this opportunity is just one-time funding over a 24-month period, and there's no guarantee that there would be the exact funding opportunity in future. Next slide, please. So the rubric. The rubric should be your best friend because the rubric is what we use as is a decision-making tool that we use to score the LOI and also the application. The rubric has 6 main categories that has a maximum score of 50 points. And these categories, as you write the proposal, make sure that you use or apply these categories in the context of your organization, in the context of your work, and in the context of your community. And we encourage you to honor your expertise and the communities that you serve. Before I go over the categories separately, I wanted to mention that it's important that as you speak to the rubric in the application, that you have shared all the relevant information about your work and to allow us to score your application accurately. The rubric is straight from the funding opportunity. We are not hiding anything. It's transparent and it's visible. It's on our website in the funding opportunity. And the scoring details will follow, and it describes what we are looking for and the criteria we will use when scoring. So back to the 6 categories. So we have the first category focusing on equity focused. So with that, organizations show that they are able to prioritize news and information that reaches historically marginalized Central Texans. With the second category, potential for impact, which we use to score the LOI, organizations produces local news and information that strengthens reporting on the health and social issues of historically marginalized Central Texans and others not adequately served, represented, or reached. And you'd notice that each of these categories has points assigned to it. The third rubric category is of and by community. So in this rubric category, is the organization recognized as a trusted or quality source of information, and is the organization in relationship with and has a clear plan for connecting with underserved communities? Does the organization also demonstrate a commitment to actively working with or being informed by community to elevate the voices, the concerns, and the lived experiences of Central Texans affected by health inequities? Team capacity is team capacity. Does the organization have the capacity in terms of people, skills, tools, resources available to produce the quality and trustworthy and accurate and reliable news using the journalistic standards of integrity and ethics? The fifth one is durability. So with durability, does the organization explain how the changes that they are seeking for this grant to support, are they able to demonstrate that this change will continue beyond the 2-year funding period? And with this durability also, we are not looking for sustainability. Sustainability is continuing the same program or project year after year. With durability, is the investment building your muscle to do the work in a way that when the investment goes away, you've been able to make some changes, some improvements, some enhancements that allows that investment to live on based on the changes that you have made. And finally, in the rubric category, we have collaboration, which I spoke to on the earlier slide. So does the organization show in their proposal that it has strong networks and partnerships within the community? And does it foster connection among journalists, storytellers, and community partners? What I would encourage you to do is, after you are done writing your LOI and or application, you have to take a step back and have a colleague or someone who's not familiar with the work read it and make sure that they understand. You give them the funding opportunity, you give them the rubric and have them read it. It's also important that you say and show the work. Why that is important is because we may not know your organization. So if you don't say it, you don't show it, wouldn't be able to score wouldn't be able to score the application in a way that gives you the merit that you deserve. So say what you are doing to support community-centered journalism that strengthens local coverage of health and social issues impacting Central Texans, particularly our neighbors facing the greatest health disparities. And you don't just say it, you show that you're actually doing this work by showing or giving one or two illustrative examples. Next slide, please. All right. So this is the last slide before we get into Q&A, and it's around the scoring process and submission tips, which I've alluded to earlier. And I'm going to take a step again to pull back the curtain on our scoring process. The applications that come in, the LOIs that come in, are reviewed by a foundation team, individual staff members. And so it's important that you describe your work accurately as detailed in the funding opportunity. The team reviewing the proposal, as I mentioned earlier, are not familiar with your work. So please take some time to describe your organization and your work, the work part that is relevant to the call, not everything that you've done, but the work part that is relevant to the call at hand. And the rubric, again, is the scoring tool, it's our decision-making tool, and it spells out what we are looking for. So let the rubric be your best friend. We are not looking for any fancy words and as you describe the work that you're doing. The scoring is about delivering on the goal of the call and showing your work and giving examples. We are not into creative writing tests. And describe your work in a way that aligns with the rubric. In the past, applicants have put the rubric side by side with what we're writing to make sure that they are responding to each of the rubric categories in the full application. I'll also encourage you to review the funding opportunity materials and the FAQs. The FAQs will be updated periodically, so be familiar with those before you start writing. And if there are any questions that are unclear, we have questions at stdavidsfoundation.org that is manned by a wonderful Claire, and she'll get back to you within 48 hours. So, in summary, I want you to say it, I want you to show it, so we can score it. Competitive proposals will show how your general coverage elevates the voices of marginalized communities, the voices, the lived experience, and the concerns of marginalized communities. Competitive proposals will also show how you cover systems and decisions that shape health equity. In addition, how you serve as an accountability tool for institutions affecting community well-being. And finally, competitive proposals will show how you help people, specific communities, stay informed about issues that matter to them in their daily lives. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Claire for her to man the questions and answers.
All right. Thank you, Abena. Thank you, Christina and Reagan. We are going to go into our Q&A portion of the webinar. And if you would please submit your Q&A questions using that feature on the bottom of your Zoom screen. Please ensure you're on mute. If you're running into technical issues with that feature, you can directly chat SDF Tech. Tasha, Program Officer Extraordinaire, would be happy to help you out with that. We'll get to as many questions as time allows for. Sometimes questions may be too specific or we might not have an answer right away. And we do want to get you an answer that is clear and accurate. And so that is why that questions at stdavidsfoundation.org is a great resource if you have a specific question. And during registration, some of y'all submitted questions, and so we will start with those. Thank you for asking questions ahead of time, and then we will get to the Q&A featured questions. So this first one, Abena, if you would mind answering this, what is the difference between a news organization and a community newsletter or social media account?
Thank you for the question, Claire. And before I answer, I just want to make sure to say that the news organizations, community newsletters, social media accounts, all can provide community relevant information. However, with this call, what we are looking for is that a news organization produces original, local journalism with established editorial standards, journalistic integrity, and commitment to accuracy, fairness, and accountability. Content creators may share information or perspectives on local issues, but typically they don't operate under the same journalistic standards, editorial processes, and fact checking practices that distinguish reporting from commentary or aggregation. So that's a lot. But basically, it depends on whether the organizations functions as news organizations producing original journalism with editorial standards. Simply distributing information through newsletters or social media doesn't automatically qualify you as a news organization.
Okay, thank you. And this next question, Christina, could we use grant funds to hire staff? Oh, you're on mute.
Thanks, Claire. It's in the chat, but I also realized that I said that the LOIs were due on the 26th. LOIs January 22nd. Sorry about that. Major clarification. Okay, can grants be used to hire staff? So grant recipients can have the discretion. This is a flexible grant on how the funds are spent as they carry out the grant purpose and project. However, this is a one-time grant over a 2-year period. So thinking about the longevity of that, being strategic is really key. The positions that you demonstrate should strengthen the ability to produce original content and journalism. Consider how any new hires or how deepening your bench allows you to enhance your capacity to fulfill the intent of the call. And then, of course, thinking about the long term, how your investment serve as a long-term building block after the 2-year grant project. So flexible funding, but yet remember, it is a one-time grant.
Great, thank you. Abena, what does historically marginalized mean in this context?
Thank you for this question. I referenced it a lot in my presentation. So what do we mean by historically marginalized? It refers to Central Texans. Historically marginalized Central Texans refers to communities that have faced systematic barriers to resources, opportunity, representation due to race, ethnicity, income level, immigration status, language, geography, rural versus urban, for example, disability or other factors. And these are populations that have often been excluded from decision-making. They are underserved by institutions and whose stories, whose narratives, whose concerns and perspectives have been absent or misrepresented in mainstream media. So when you look at the rubric, for example, there's the of and by the community rubric category. So in answering that part, using that to answer your LOI or application, it means that news organizations are recognized as trusted sources within these communities. The news organizations are in relationships with communities, not just covering them from the outside. The news organizations are actively working to be informed by the community voices, and the news organization is continually elevating the lived experience of those most impacted by disparities. And finally, the news organization reflects communities in their reporting and in their newsroom. Thank you for that question, Claire.
Thanks, Abena. Christina, if my organization is producing media to promote certain program activities or that support health and wellness, is that considered eligible?
No, likely not eligible. The funding opportunity is specifically for news organizations or organizations that are producing original local journalism with editorial independence, journalistic integrity, and established editorial standards. I think there's a distinction that we're looking for between a promotional content and activities and journalism. If your project's primary purpose is for marketing or promoting programs, even if they're related to health and wellness, rather than providing independent local news and information that serves the best interests of the public, that would not be a fit for this opportunity.
Great, thank you. Abena, kind of a big one. What types of proposals are we looking to fund?
Strong proposals, but it's seriously, the funding opportunity seeks to support organizations working to strengthen local media capacity and advance community health here in our Central Texas region. So proposals must demonstrate how your project strengthens local journalism and media as a connector in Central Texas communities by helping to inform residents and amplifying community voices regarding the issues that shape health and well-being in our region. And I would encourage you to look at the language in the funding opportunity where we talk about strengthen equity-focused, community-informed local reporting on the factors that influence health and well-being. So your proposal should demonstrate that. It should also show how you plan to strengthen the capacity and durability of local news organizations serving diverse and underrepresented communities. Also show how you're going to foster collaboration and connection among journalists, storytellers, and community partners. And then finally, how you plan to elevate the voices, the concerns, and lived experience of our Central Texas neighbors most affected by health disparities. So in summary, strong proposals will demonstrate clear community benefit and practical outcomes, would also show how you connect with and be informed by underserved communities. Your strong proposal should also explain how your journalism serves as both an accountability tool and community connector. And finally, strong proposals should show and articulate a path to durability beyond this 2-year funding opportunity. Thank you for that question, Claire.
Thanks, Abena. Similarly, Christina, how do I know if my organization is a good fit for this funding opportunity?
So we've said it a few times, but again, really spending time with the eligibility criteria, really spending time with the rubric. We can't express enough, just carefully review those, have colleagues review those, to perhaps take a draft and step back and then really reassess if you feel like there's alignment. If your organization meets that criteria, then you're eligible to apply. The rubric really does offer a lot of details, and I see some other questions that hopefully we'll tackle with clarification on that. But there are categories specific to that: equity focus, potential for impact, serving communities that are underrepresented, the durability question we'll get to here in a second, and then of course collaboration. So I think that it sort of goes without repeating Abena's response before, but happy to continue to answer questions, especially at questions at which Claire will get to, but really thoughtfully review the eligibility criteria and think about the intent of the work that you do and if it's aligned to the purpose of this call.
Great, thank you. Christina, kind of similar to hiring staff, would adding a news programming network to a current structure or launching a new communications project, would that be a good fit for this funding opportunity?
I see those as two different questions. The first question, I think, is it an entirely new project? I think if you align with the eligibility criteria and you meet those and you feel like you would adequately be able to reflect a high score on the rubric, even if it is new, I think it would need to be a pretty compelling project for a new entity. But if you feel that you meet that criteria, I'm not saying that it wouldn't be something that we would consider, but I think that really this is intended to strengthen existing outlets and existing work being done. Now, if you're a project that is under a current umbrella or an emerging project within or connected to an existing entity or news organization, that certainly qualifies.
Great, thank you. Abena, since you spoke to the rubric, we have a few rubric questions. Let's see, is there a preference for projects that partner with established media outlets or independent nonprofit-led media projects equally competitive? Maybe speak to collaboration.
Could you repeat that question, please? I was trying to read along.
No, it's okay. Is there a preference for projects that partner with media outlets that are established or in independent nonprofit-led projects equally competitive?
So we are interested in working with local news outlets. And so the local news outlets that are the lead applicants can partner with other organizations that are working with on other health issues, but the lead applicant should be the local news outlet, if I'm understanding the question correctly. Christina, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that's right. I think it's also something that we'll need to review within the LOA process. I think allowing us to actually see the explanation around that is helpful.
Abner or Christina, could you again speak to how award amounts are determined for grant funding?
Yes. So the award amounts are determined by the scale of the project, the scope of the project, and also the annual budget of the lead applicant submitting the proposal. So that's how we determine the award amount.
And Abena, wondering if you could speak to more of the difference and nuance between sustainability and durability from the rubric.
All right, let me capture my notes here. So sustainability, it's more around doing the same program year after year that you were funded for and getting the funds to sustain the project. Durability, on the other hand, is more around how you use St. David's Foundation's investment to make lasting changes within your organization, and those changes continue to be experienced after the funding goes away. So for example, you could use the St. David's Foundation investment to enhance some policies, the way you reach community to tell the stories. It could vary. And is that aspect of it continuing to last beyond the 2 years?
Thanks, Abena. Christina, or maybe Reagan, for this, could you speak to the examples of how a for-profit organization might utilize the funds, what charitable purpose means, and how that's different? So this is a flexible grant, and so how a flexible grant is different than general operating support for a for-profit organization?
I can start, and Reagan, if you want to jump in or correct me on anything. So I can't stress enough how much it was important to us to include for-profit organizations within this funding opportunity. The work that our for-profit partners are doing is very powerful. It is fundamental to the work that we do, and we appreciate it. And that was why it was really important. So I know that the terms of this are kind of legalese, must be used for charitable purpose. I'll say that frankly, because it is an interesting construct. We have the ability to fund a for-profit through grant making. There are some sort of nuances to that. So that is really the line that we share that is sort of the important factor within that. It is a flexible grant. What it means is that I could try to share maybe a couple of key examples that would probably not be a great fit and would not necessarily work for charitable purposes. So if you're looking to increase anything connected to a revenue model, what we're looking for is ways that you can strengthen the bench of your reporting to increase the work that you're doing, to increase the work specifically that you're doing and developing around health and wellness content, health and well-being, informing your communities, creating original content that is directed to help inform your communities about what's happening, reflecting the communities that you serve. So things that affect your revenue model, things that affect sort of the work of doing business. If you're looking to potentially invest in digitizing your news outlet, that would be something that we would really struggle with reviewing. It's not really around the operational revenue generating piece of that. Another element is if you have a paywall or a barrier to that. We certainly understand the nature of paywalls. We understand the need for for-profit organizations to create revenue opportunity. So we do see that, but we would also be looking for ways to be able to have our content be in front of that paywall. So important content for the community to be in front of that, to be accessible in other ways so the community can access that. So I would say again, I mean, the flexible applies to the grant award itself. The nuance for for-profit organizations is that we really can't support anything that is specific to generating additional revenue or helping improve your business model, if you will.
I think that was answered very well and wouldn't add anything that wouldn't turn it to legalese. So if you have more detailed questions, certainly send it to questions@, and we will answer those more detailed questions.
Great, thanks, y'all. Abena, could you speak to, there's some that are kind of some questions that are related. Maybe expand on the connection between health and social issues in a local journalism context. And there's another one similar. These are great questions. Thank you, guys.
And Abena, can I say one quick thing on that question?
Mm-hmm.
This is a great opportunity to direct everybody to our community health needs assessment. Within our website, we have our most recent CHNA, which really does help demonstrate how we see the health needs affecting our Central Texas community. I would encourage everyone to visit the CHNA. It's a tremendous resource that we do in partnership with all of our health systems. And it reflects back what we heard through many, many hundreds of conversations with community members, our health partners, to be able to understand the issues that are affecting Central Texas community. So I would just encourage everyone to visit the CHNA. It is an interactive report available on our website, easily accessible. So I would just start there and then hand it to Abena.
No, that's good, Christina. When we talk about health at St. David's Foundation, we talk about health with a broader lens. The 80% of all the issues that impact an individual's health outcome, it's non-health issues per se, and then 20% is what occurs within the doctor's office. So when we talk about health and social issues, it's broad. For example, if you look at our strategic plan and go to, for example, economic stability, we have affordable housing as a platform for health. And we also have, in goal 3, we have community-driven change, where communities are lifting up health issues and priorities that impact their health and well-being. So we use a broader definition of health, and the call language provides some guidance as well.
Thanks, Abena and Christina. sort of going back to eligibility, is this funding opportunity reserved specifically for publications and reporting organizations, or could other organizations apply, such as nonprofits that have a media arm and publish podcasts, blogs, videos? Is it only for news organizations?
I'm going to start and Christina will add on. So we are looking for original content. We are also looking for projects or proposals from groups that adhere to the journalistic integrity guidelines. And so those are the lenses that we are using. So Christina, what do you have in your shop?
I would say the same thing. I mean, I think if you are generating original news, if you are meeting journalistic standards, if you are developing content that is specific to informing the communities that you serve, and you're helping them make informed decisions, that is certainly something that we would review. I know we say local news organization and news outlet. That's a broad term, so we understand that. But if you are creating original content, that is something that we would consider.
Thank you. Is it okay for a news organization to have a fiscal sponsor for this funding opportunity?
Yes, we encourage fiscal sponsors for this call for nonprofits as well as for-profit organizations.
Similarly, does a for-profit organization or LLC have to submit in partnership with a nonprofit?
No.
If an organization is, or multiple organizations are submitting as a collaboration, does at least one have to be a news organization?
No, I think that's sort of in the same category as the question before. I think, again, we can't stress enough how we're defining original content versus republishing an aggregation of existing content from other outlets. And then we do know that some of our outlets, especially rural outlets, will pick up and share very important vital news that is syndicated, that is shared. We see that. That is not intended to be what we're referring to. We're talking about if an organization or an outlet is truly just aggregating additional content and not creating original content, that would not be eligible. But I would say it's the same answer, Claire, if that makes sense. I think as long as there is original content adhering to same journalistic standards, where the things that we mentioned before, where there is reporting reflecting communities that we serve.
Sounds great. Thank you. This may be sort of predicting the future, but are there examples of hopeful grant outcomes from this funding opportunity?
I see Joel asked that. Hi, Joel. I can tell you an outcome for me. I think for those of you all that indulged my calls and emails over the past 2 years, I would say a broader goal is that we really demonstrate a couple of things. The civic health funding priority for us is a new space. It's something that we've worked in. It hasn't necessarily been named as such. It's in our strategic plan. So again, I encourage you to reach each of those different funding priorities within our website. But that really is helping us step into space that we've been working in for the past several years. We've been working with many of you all in a very small scale. So for me, I would say a broader goal is to signal that the importance of local media and informed communities is deeply connected to civic health. We're excited to collaborate with our partners and share what we learned from this opportunity. So a broader goal would be just that, to signal to the community, to the funding community, and to our partners the importance and how essential the work that you do and the importance of local news.
And what I add to that is that an informed and an engaged community that has the relevant information can do magic. They can use the information to shape their lives and also that of their families and their community.
Thank you. I think that is a wonderful place to end this webinar time. Thank you guys for attending. Thank you to our facilitators. Thank you for your questions and your time. More importantly, we at the foundation are grateful for the work you do in our community. It is not work that we can do here, but you guys are on the ground taking care of our neighbors and our friends in our communities across our 5 counties. We will post a recording of this webinar, and again, please answer questions or ask any questions to questions@stdavidsfoundation.org. I'm the face of that inbox. I am happy and glad to answer those questions and get your organization a clear answer to help in this process. Again, thank you for this work. Please refer to our website, sign up for the newsletter. Christine would probably love for me to say that. And we look forward to y'all's applications.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.